to become an expert, you can't be an expert being a generalist straight from the off, because there's too much to knowledge. Start narrow and branch out over time. In today's video, we are going to talk about how to become an expert advisor. But before we get into it, we produce content 3 times every single week, helping you to start, grow, and scale your financial services business. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video when you are done absorbing all the amazing content that is out there on this channel. So I've broken down the process to becoming an expert advisor into 3 critical steps. The first one is making sure that you are qualified, that you have your CMAP qualification or the other industry standards that mean that you can do the job. Now, the difficulty with the examinations is they don't teach you how to do the job. They'll show you about the regulation, they'll show you about all the different nuances, they'll give you a foundational knowledge of all the different elements to financial services, but they won't give you the practical application. So you must get your qualification first. Step number 2 is making sure that you start the job right. Employed or self-employed. I'm a huge believer that if you start this job as a self-employed individual, you're not going to get the support, the coaching, and the guidance that you need fast to become an expert advisor. In my own journey, I started as employed with a bank. I learnt one lender's products and then branched on to becoming part of an estate agent, part of a brokerage. So if you want to get this process down and you want to become an expert advisor and you want to do it quickly and you don't want to fall at the early hurdle, making sure that you start in a job, even if it is self-employed, just make sure that you've got daily support. You've got a mentor who can be on the end of the phone to help you with all the elements that I'm going to discuss with you as part of this video, around the process, around the products, and around all the presentation skills and all the key elements that you need to become an expert advisor. The third point, which is where we're going to go deep into this, is focusing on the job. This is the most important part of once you have got your qualifications, you've decided who you're going to work for, you then need to focus on only being really good. You know, you need to make sure that you're dealing with all the different types of clients, because there is so much detail when it comes to being an expert advisor, and you only become an expert through a huge amount of experience. There's a huge rush in this industry to become self-employed. You know, in my own personal journey, I started with the woolage at a bank. I then went into a estate agency. I then went into a brokerage in Essex, then moved to a brokerage in London, then built somebody else's brokerage over the course of 12 months with a couple of other people, and we scaled that from 0 to £100,000 in 11 months. And only at that point in time did I feel confident in these 5 elements I'm going to share with you now about pursuing my own self-employed journey. So to become an expert, focus on the job. How you do that is, the first thing is focusing on the process. You need to get the process down inside and out. If you look at someone who's baking a cake, there's a recipe for baking that cake. There's a process that you follow to go from a load of ingredients to something that comes out of the oven that actually you want to eat. It's exactly the same in terms of the person who comes to you saying, I want to buy this home, through to getting their keys and moving into that home. But the difference in this job is the products. You've got buy to let, you've got first time buyer, you've got employed, you've got self-employed, you've got overtime, bonuses, commission, accounts, credit reports. Then you've got to take into account someone's credit, bad credit, the credit cards, loans, hire purchase. There's so many different nuances that you have to take into consideration that the process changes very, very slightly depending on the person that you're actually dealing with, the product that they are most interested in. So you need to focus on process as the first most important step. Once you've got the process down and you know the product that that client is interested in, then you can get into understanding the pitch. When you know the end-to-end process, the pitch is the first part of the conversation that you're going to have with the client. Now that could be an hour-long appointment, that could be 30 minutes of a conversation that you have with a client, but either way, you have to get better at pitching, and you're always going to be pitching because you've got 7 seconds to make a first impression. And if you don't make the right impression, they're going to bugger off to some other broker that they end up having a conversation with. And you need to capture them, you need to grab their attention, you need to share your knowledge, you need to show that you have a vast amount of experience, even if you are just starting out. Which is why it's good to start understanding the process and the end-to-end customer journey first, because then you can feel more like an expert because you know more than your client. You then build your knowledge on the products as you start to deal with more clients, which means that your pitch gets better. So focus on process, focus on pitch, and focus on products. The more cases you do, the better you're going to get. In my first 12 months, I probably spoke to clients twice a day, 5 days a week for 52 weeks of a year. Now that was different clients, from the first time buyer to the moving home, to the remortgage, to the buy to let. The more you consistently do that, the more conversations you have, the better you're going to get. The more opportunities that you're going to find to understand the different amounts of criteria, to understand all the different requirements of the whole market of lenders that are available to you. That's why one of the best things that I had in my journey was starting in a bank, because I only had one lender's criteria and one range of products to understand. Then when I moved on to a estate agency who had a limited panel, i.e. they used a small number of lenders, before then moving on to a brokerage where it was technically independent or whole of market as you might know it. That means that your knowledge grows as your experience grows. So don't underestimate the power of starting limited and expanding and growing over the course of a 2-3 year period. There is a huge amount to learn in this job and in this role, and to become an expert, you can't be an expert being a generalist straight from the off, because there's too much to knowledge. Start narrow and branch out over time. Once you've got your process, pitch and products down, you can start to focus on protection, where everything that I've just spoken to you about over the last few minutes is exactly the same when it comes to protection. Protection has a process. Protection needs you to be able to pitch, and you need to understand the products. The more you understand the products, the more you're going to be able to pitch. Life insurance, critical illness, income protection, health insurance, family income benefit, home insurance, buy-to-let insurance. Yeah, that's 7 that I've just reeled off as the same way I did for mortgages. You can't be an expert at both. You have to focus on getting the mortgage process down, then focusing on the protection process. And in saying that, I do actually believe if you want to become an expert advisor in today's mortgage world, your best bet is to start on protection first. Because in starting on protection, it's going to be something that you're always going to be able to have a conversation about. It's going to be something that your client, you're always going to value in the conversation that you have with your client. Because in giving them advice on the largest financial commitment that they're going to make in their lifetime, you're going to be able to discuss the what ifs. The what happens if you can't work, the what happens if you get a critical illness, the what happens if you die. Not just them, but also what happens to their partner, their kids, their lifestyle, the roof over their head that they've worked so hard to save the deposit for. Protection and insurance is technically what it is vitally important. And being able to have those really important discussions is absolutely vital. So we've gone through process, we've gone through pitch, we've gone through products, we've gone through protection. And the last P, if you hadn't guessed there is P's in here, then we are looking at presentation. Because in taking all this information from a client, in understanding the process of breaking that down into initial first conversation where you fact find and you take all the information, research, where you will then go away and you will find the most suitable product and you will speak to the lenders and you'll check the criteria and you'll do all of that part of it, to then moving on to the presentation side of things. That's this last piece of the puzzle. Because once you've found the most suitable lender, the best insurance product, you then need to be able to present it in a way that is actually understandable to the client. You must break that down so they understand why, they understand how, they understand what they need to cover off. And that's where you're going to face objections. That's where there's going to be a multitude of different questions. And the presentation is absolutely vital to close off the sale, to then move into the submitting the application and carrying on your process right the way through to completion. The more conversations you have on the front end, the more research you're going to be doing, the more presentations you're going to make, the more completions you're ultimately going to get. And the more you do that process, the more of an expert advisor you're going to become. And in understanding that whole end-to-end customer journey and how you manage it is exactly how I help mortgage brokers to go through and understand the customer journey and to make sure that they maximize every opportunity when starting out, going through from the first conversation through to building an ongoing relationship where you can think about then moving on to growing your business. You have to get the foundational principles correct. A house built on sand doesn't stay up for very long. If you try and build your business before you become an expert advisor, you'll fall at the first hurdle and you'll have a huge amount of difficulty getting to growing and even getting to scaling if you want to build a business that runs without you, much like I've done over the last few years. So I hope that inspires you to think differently about starting your business, becoming an expert advisor, which is the foundational principle. If you want help in relation to that, then there's a link below that you can click on to learn more. If you want to get more information related to starting, growing, or scaling your business, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you like this video. If you have any questions, then make sure you leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.